Now, in addition to working with masks and text, we can also work with masks and layers. So what I'm going to do here is I'll pull my layers palette over into my screen so you can see this here. And I'm going to lock down layer 1 and go and create a brand new layer called layer 2 here, obviously. And I'll go and place another graphic. Use picture 3 this time. Place. There it is there. And I'll go and draw some kind of an object over top of the picture to act as my clipping mask here. I'll hit D on my keyboard so that I get the default fill-in stroke. There it is there. Again, this could be text if you like, or some kind of a shape that I have here. And I'm not going to select anything. In fact, I'll deselect all of my objects here. This is all based on layers. In fact, this is called a layer-based mask. And there's a couple of ways to do this here. So what's going to happen is all of the objects on my layer will be masked here. Just like before, though, I have my cookie cutter or my masking shape on top of everything else that I want to have masked. With the layer highlighted here, I can either click on my clipping mask button down at the bottom of the layers palette, or I can go to my layers palette menu and choose Make Clipping Mask. And there's a layer-based mask. Works exactly the same way, except it's taking all of the objects on my layer into account. So that's the basics for working with clipping masks. So you saw clipping masks, and you also saw working with blends. Let's go and use both of these now in a project file. So I'm going to go File, Open here, head to your Project Files folder. Again, it's on your desktop. Inside the Part 1 folder, inside Lesson 3, and look for targetearth.ai here, and then open. And what I've done here is I've created two little computer screens here. Imagine these are little periscopes or little viewing screens that perhaps an alien race is using to look at or take a peek at planet Earth here. So what we want to do is we have our lovely view screen here. We have two of them here, so we're going to do this twice. And what I want to do is I want to pop the graphic into the background here and have it masked away from the rest of the object here. So I've already inserted some text here, a little task list here, some fun little things here, sector readout and so on. Now take a look at your layers palette. I went and docked them over on the right. I'll pull them back out here. So I have two layers happening here. I have metal frame. That's the metal frame that I've created here. Turn them on and shut them off so you can see what I have there. And then I also have another layer here that I called screen stuff. So anything that appears on the screen here appears on the screen stuff layer. So the first thing that I want to do is add in some lines on my screen, and I'm going to do this by using a blend. So make sure that you're on the screen stuff layer, and I'm going to set my stroke to a red and my fill to none. So if you take a look at the bottom of my toolbox there, I'll just hit the X key to switch my fill to the front, and then my / key to set it to none. And I'll grab my line tool here, and at the very top of my little computer screen here, I'm going to click and drag using my line tool here. And I'm holding down Shift so that I get a perfectly straight line. Hit V on my keyboard, there's my line, and I'll just use my arrow tools here just to sort of nudge it into place here. So I have one line at the top, and what I'm after is a whole series of lines all the way down my screen here, because I want it to look like a little computer monitor here. So I'll hold down the Option key here on the Mac or Alt on the PC, drag it down here, hold down Shift as well to lock it into position, and I'll drop it right there. There's my second line there. I'll grab both of them just by Shift clicking here, and I'll create a blend. So I'll go Object all the way down to Blend, and then Make. Not exactly what I had in mind, but I'll go and tweak my blend. Object down to Blend, and then Blend Options. I'll switch to Specified Steps. Rather than 221, I will try 50. There we are. Click on OK. Looks pretty good. The only other thing I'm going to do is use my opacity option on my control bar just to fade it back a little bit. I'll try 50%. Looks fantastic. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to drop my graphic onto my computer screen here. The easiest way to do this is I'm going to go and create a new layer inside my layers palette, and you'll see how I'll create my clipping mask from there. So I'll go and create my new layer. I'll double click on it here and I'll rename it Mask and drag it underneath Screen Stuff. And then I'll go and grab one of my graphics. File and Place. I'll use Picture 1. Place it. There it is. You can see there's a slight red tint to my computer screen as well. That's one of my objects on the screen stuff layer there that has a little bit of opacity applied to it. So there's my graphic, but it's not perfect. It's not clipping to my computer screen here. So I have to create my mask here. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll position my graphic, again, my cookie dough if you want to think of it like that. And then the second thing that I'll do is go and create the actual masking object. And in this example, I'll just use a rectangle. And the idea here is to create an object that sits behind this metallic frame, something like this. So there's my object there. Back to my black arrow tool, select it there, my clipping object highlights. Don't forget the clipping object has to be on top of the graphic that you want to clip. I hold down Shift and I click on them both. And you remember your keyboard shortcut? It's Command 7 on the Mac or Control 7 on the PC. And the graphic is clipped or masked to that rectangle that I just drew. Single click away, and that's how things are looking. Pretty darn good. Everything that you saw just a minute ago applies. I could come back in here with my white arrow tool and I could click on my graphic in the background here and move it around just a little bit until I have it positioned exactly the way I want here. Maybe I decide I want to have something like that. Wonderful, perfect. So that's kind of a neat thing that you can do with your clipping masks here in Illustrator. We have one more, pretty much the same idea here. So I have this object here. I've already gone to the effort of creating your lines here, but I did that in the exact same way, just using the blending mode there. And I'll go and grab a graphic that we want to mask. I'll go down to Place here, Picture 2, and then Place. There it is there. Imagine this is what a robot or an invading alien monster sees as he's walking down Main Street, USA here. Something like this. Okay. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm not going to drag a rectangle to mask this here, only because I have this little nose piece here, which is going to cause me a little bit of problems here. But I do have an object right here. If you click anywhere between any of these grid lines here, there's an object here which is giving me that green tint. And I'm going to use that guy as my clipping object. So what I'll do is I'll copy them and then paste them in front, Command F or Control F on the PC, hold down Shift and click on my Main Street graphic here, and then use my keyboard shortcut, Command 7 or Control 7. Now, again, we have a stacking order issue here. We've had a few of these along the way, so I'll just take my graphic here and send it all the way to the back. Command Shift open square bracket on the Mac or Control Shift open square bracket on the PC. And there we are. So now we get to see what it's like to invade a homeworld. Pretty cool stuff. Just like you saw a moment ago, I can use my white arrow tool here and of course change the positioning of my graphic here. Maybe I decide I like something like that. Very lovely. And there's some of the cool things that you can do with blending modes and clipping masks in Illustrator.